Sir, can we start this session? Because our Sondi sir, can you please unmute yourself? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very
You
good
are
morning.
audible and visible too.
I'm glad to be a part of this session, and yes, we can start. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Agrawal sir is there. I think. Can we start this session, sir?
हाँ जी सर, हाँ जी स्टार्ट कर दें, ठीक है।
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning to one and all present here, and on behalf of Department of Environmental Science and Department of Civil Engineering, JC Bose University of Science and Technology, Faridabad, I, Dr. Somveer Bajaj, welcome our resource person and all the participants on this 5th day of online faculty developmental program on green technologies and environmental sustainability. So today we have 3 technical sessions in which 4 eminent speakers will put forward their talk on sustainability in diverse fields. So let's begin this session with the auspicious lamp lighting ceremony as a tribute to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge. This COVID-19 pandemic has severely affected public health as well as world's economy. So converging evidence from the current pandemic and previous outbreaks and controlled experiments indicate that the presence of microbial contamination in the wastewater, which may lead to potential health risk. So the present session is specifically dedicated to highlight the sustainable treatment practices of wastewater with these emerging pollutants. So we have with us Dr. Akash Sondi from Terry School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi. So without further ado, with lots of requests, I am pleased to introduce Dr. Sondi as one of our eminent teachers and learned speaker to address this participant in this session. So Dr. Sondi is currently working as assistant professor at Terry School of Advanced Studies, and he has completed his MTech from IIT Kanpur in 2002 and PhD from University of Delaware, USA in 2010. He has been a mentor of Wipro Ardian program on sustainability and bring in unique experience in new age training and content development. He has more than 10 years of experience in academia.
Somi sir, you are not audible properly.
Yes, Dr. Somveer, we cannot hear you.
I'm sorry for this technical glitch. And I'm starting in continuation. So without further ado, with lot of respect,
we could not hear the introduction of sir. So could you please reintroduce him?
Okay. First. Okay, I will start from the back. Okay, on behalf of Department of Environmental Science and Department of Civil Engineering, JC Bose University of Science and Technology, Faridabad, I, Dr. Somveer Bajaj, welcome our resource person and all the participants on this 5th day of online faculty development program on green technologies and environmental sustainability. So today we have three sessions in which four eminent speakers will put forward their talk on sustainability on diverse issues and fields. So let's begin with the session with the auspicious lamp lighting ceremony as a tribute to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge.
Audio has stopped again, sir.
Okay, this COVID-19 pandemic has severely affected public health as well as the world's economy. So converging evidence from the current pandemic and previous outbreaks and controlled experiment indicate the presence of microbial contamination in the wastewater, which may lead to the potential health risks. So the present session is specifically dedicated to highlight the sustainable treatment practices of wastewater with these emerging pollutants. So we have with us Dr. Akash Sondhi from TERI School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi. So without further ado, with lots of requests, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Sondhi as our eminent and learned speaker to address this session. So Dr. Sondhi is currently working as assistant professor at TERI School of Advanced Studies, and he has completed his MTech from IIT Kanpur in 2002 and PhD from University of Delaware, USA in 2010. And he has been a mentor of Wipro Ardhian program on sustainability and bring in a unique experience in new age training and content development. He has more than 10 years of experience in academia and industry as a process design engineer and also worked on decentralized wastewater treatment. He has managed and governed work integrated learning and higher education programs for industry. And his current research interests are emerging contaminants in water systems, wastewater systems of optimization with bioenergy recovery, and water reclamation with reuse, smart water and wastewater utilities for smarter and sustainable cities. So now I welcome and request you, sir, to enlighten us on sustainable practices of wastewater treatment for emerging pollutants.
Thank you, Dr. Somveer. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. And thank you, Dr. Agarwal. It's my pleasure to be here, and I acknowledge all the participants who are part of this 5-day training program. I know you have had very, very interesting and very diverse sessions related to the theme of the program on sustainable technologies. And I am very sure that you have, I mean, this is a very difficult time for all of us, yet J.C. Bose University of Science and Technology could arrange a session like this as a value-add session for all of you. I think it's very good. And I also duly acknowledge all the faculties who are present for this program. I know this is a difficult time, not only for the students, but also for the faculties. But I'm sure that you have found a way to connect, and you have found a way to keep sharing the knowledge at these times. So with that as a context, I will continue with my talk, and which is on emerging contaminants. But I would ask for a little bit of, I have a request. One request is to turn off my video, because generally I have seen that many times when we try to use the video, the bandwidth gets compromised and the voice breaks. So now that at least you have seen me, I would like to see you towards the end of the session. And but I would turn off the video for now so that you can hear me clearly. That is one. The other request was to Dr. Sombir Bajar to use the poll question which I have given you and set that up as a poll and share it with the participants. There are 3 questions, and within the question number 2, there are within question number 2, there are 3 sub questions. So kindly, if you can just float the poll question, I will appreciate that. I will use that question to start our discussion. And
Sure.
Thank you very much. Dr. Bajar, please let us know once the poll question is set, and you may please put the poll question on the chat box. I believe that's how the participants will access it, correct?
Just doing this.
Sure, sir. I know. Thank you very much. So as Dr. Bajar is setting up the poll question, I take an opportunity to quickly view through the participant list, and I want to say hello to everybody. Dr. Smrita Kumar, Mohan Lal, Monica, Rohit, Ranga, Suman, Ashi Chaudhary, Aishwarya, Anuruddh, Anita,
It has,
Anjali,
I'm sorry.
Anu, Dr. Anu Gupta, Arpita, Astha Mishra, Azad Yadav, and then I go to Bharat, Chandram, Mr. Chaju Ram, Debananda, Dharamveer, Dr. Dharamveer, Dr. Manoj Kumar Sharma, Dr. Mona Sharma, Dr. Omveer Singh, Dr. Santosh, Dr. Shyam Sundar, Dr. Vikram, Drishti Sharma, Gaurav Rana, Harshit Bhola, Hemant Vashisht, Himani Kantiwal, Jaipal Yadav, Kashish,
I'm sorry.
Kataria.
Means this poll has already been plotted on.
Sure. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I can almost see the responses coming in. Very interesting. Thank you. And I out of 92, 18 are viewing the question. 19% have voted. I would request you. So I will keep introducing. I will keep knowing you as the session progresses. For now, please participate in the poll. Thank you.
You may start your session also with the share screen.
Yes, sir. I will. I'm sharing my screen. Somveer sir, can you please make me co-host? In that case, I can share my screen. Right now it is.
You are already co-host, sir.
Already co-host. Okay. Here, actually, it says that only one participant can share at a time. So far, this is visible on the screen, the survey. I think because you are sharing, I cannot share. So I will wait for this survey to be done and then immediately share after this.
Can I end this survey or?
No, I think just 1 more minute. Actually, I think you're 2:53. Yeah, it's almost 2 minutes. So we will end at 3 minutes.
All the participants are requested to please participate in this poll so that we can start this session.
Okay. All right. So Dr. Somveer, you may please end the poll now. I think more than 50% have voted, and I would like to continue with the session. Yeah. Thank you very much.
All the participants can share their results on the screen.
Okay.
Yes, sir. You may go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Great. All right. So good morning, all of you. Are you able to see my screen? Can one of you, any one of you acknowledge? Can one of you confirm that you are able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Bajar. Thank you, Dr. Bajar. All right. Good morning. And my specific discussion topic for today's session is sustainable wastewater treatment technologies for emerging pollutants with special reference to COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much for participating in the poll. I know more than 50% of you participated, and the kind of responses which I got are very, in fact, they are a very true reflection of what the pandemic has brought in front of us. Almost when for the very first question about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, is it majorly positive or negative? I know, the people are still thinking about it. Less than 40%, around 40% of you said that out of the 50% who voted, around 40% of you said that it is going to be positive, whereas more than 60, around 58% or so say that the impact is negative. And so, yeah, there is a mixed opinion as of now. And why that opinion comes, maybe there are reasons to it. As we were part of this pandemic, we were getting adjusted to a new normal. There were some things which we felt good. When we stayed at home, we could see the birds around in our trees, so maybe a positive impact. On the same side, on the same side in Punjab, mountains far away were visible, so a positive impact. But on the other side, the impacts on each of these, when we talk about sustainable development, when we talk about sustainability, there are three pillars of that: economic, social, and environmental. And my second question, which related to the specific of these, the economic, social, and environmental, again, very interesting insights came from the poll survey. And if I have to kind of just put some statistics in front of you, a report which has come just 2 days ago said that in the first quarter, compared to the last year, our GDP shrunk by 23.9%. That means India's GDP shrunk by almost 1/4, almost 1/4. So that's a big thing, big impact. So many numbers of jobs have been lost. Migrants, a lot of informal workers who were working in and supporting the urban centers, New Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, they have now gone back. A lot of job losses have happened. Another two industries which have impacted severely are the travel and the tourism, and even more. On the social side of things, we are doing this session online because we cannot meet in person. So the COVID-19 has impacted the education sector very, very severely. And we are actually getting adjusted to a new normal. But if you ask me, we are blessed. I have a good internet connection. You are all connected via a Jio Wi-Fi or a Airtel Vodafone Wi-Fi. But what about the people who don't have internet access? 6% of the students as of now don't have access to online learning. So it has impacted us. Social distancing. Humans are social animals. We would like to, shake hands, hug somebody, touch somebody's feet, or our elderly parents would like to touch our hand or our head as they do in Haryana. So it's a natural thing. But because of social distancing, even I am, saying namaste to my father, or I am just saying, not touching the feet of somebody and not coming close to somebody. So this is another social angle, social impact. My wife, who is working in the legal side of things, she highlights that domestic violence has increased in this scenario. Because of COVID, people are now stuck at their homes. So, social things, social aspects of COVID-19. From the environmental side, again, my question was whether the impact has been fairly positive or fairly negative. And again, within the positive and the negative, I asked whether it is related to positive with respect to air pollution, water pollution, solid waste, and overall pollution. And negative again with respect to the same parameters. Responses came which pretty much corroborate our perception and our basic when we say perception, that means our gut, our intuition about what we see around us, that those kind of responses came. And I acknowledge everybody who participated in the survey for this. So yeah, the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the GDP, on education, on job losses. Also, more detailed figures show that it's very, the situation is very uncertain. Nobody knows how the situation will pan out, what will happen economically. On the environmental side of things, impacts were both positive and negative. Yes, people got to see the Dhauladhar mountains after so many years, after almost 30 to 40 years. So the air pollution levels went down. The mountains were visible. On the other side, we are using mask indiscriminately. We have to use masks to save ourselves. The very device, which is the very instrument which is helping us to fight this pandemic, to save ourselves against this pandemic, is also becoming a pollution problem from a solid waste point of view. An article in National Geographic just yesterday said that why COVID-19 pandemic will end up harming the environment more. Although right now the air pollution scenario looks very interesting, that because 50% of the people are stuck at home, not driving, and also they're not, so they are actually, because of less movement of people and population, there is some temporary effect which is showing that air quality is good. And in fact, yes, we are, because of the sky which we see in front of us is certainly very, very mesmerizing. But this article really brings forward the strong arguments that after COVID-19, the economy would like to kind of bounce back. And as a result, there will be no basically consideration for environment. They would like to go as fast as possible. And in that rise, the steep curve of economy, trying to get the economy up and running, there will be more pollution than we have seen the reduction. So that is something which is something to keep in mind. Hope you all relate to this, or you actually agree to what is being discussed here. I want a quick response. Do you all agree to this discussion and the poll, the findings from the poll, what you responded, and the argument which I presented here? Anybody can say yes, so that I know that you are there in terms of listening.
Yes, sir. Obviously.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, now I want to take your attention to something which is very important. Also, yes, everything relates to pandemic. But before even the pandemic came, India as a country was going through a very interesting phase. And that interesting phase was that we were growing very fast. Whether it was post-agriculture revolution, the industrial revolution which had picked up in India, and because of the globalization, it gave us some unique advantages. And as a result of that, India was growing very, very fast. People were moving from rural areas to urban areas. Industries were coming up, power supply to ensure that we are 1.4 billion people. Mind you, हम लोग 140 करोड़, 140,000 crores, 1.4 billion people. 1.4 billion people. And as a result, to meet the demand of this 1.4 billion people, whether it is food, whether it is water, whether it is energy, and whether it is, our own wants, going beyond needs, our own wants. Because of this, India was facing a very unique set of conditions, predicaments. One was we have to provide to everybody, that is 1.4 billion people. And on the other side, we are the world's second largest population. We are the world's second largest population living in on a spatial level, seventh. The geography of India, we are living in a very dense manner. Our population is not spread like America or China or Russia, our population, we are a very uniquely positioned country, but at the same time we are also living in a very concentrated and dense manner. Our population density is very, very high compared to the other country which compares to India is Japan. So Japan also is very densely populated in urban centers. Okay, now the point which I wanted to say was that India, to feed all these people, to provide water all these people, the kind of water we were using, our fresh water withdrawals and our industrial water withdrawals are at a very, very high level, and as a result our per capita water availability, so water available for per person, is almost at a point where we are at a threshold. After this, if we further add the number of people, or if the water becomes even more scarce, then we are going to be in a very complex situation. Complex meaning situations like droughts, non-availability of fresh water for our use. So that is the context which I also wanted to bring along with this COVID pandemic. Pandemic came, but even before that there were issues. Again, as of now, we just have the right amount of water to support ourselves. But at the same time, if it reduces further, we are going to be in a challenging situation. Now, but the COVID came. The COVID indeed came, and it resulted into even more of something which was already there. Now, if I ask you, when we think about COVID, when we think about the COVID pandemic, who do you think is going to help us? Matlab, how do we save ourselves from COVID? And I want maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 responses from the participants, if it is possible. Dr. Somveer, you may please unmute selective participants as per your discretion, and then I want a response from them. My question is, in the context of COVID, what is going to save us?
Participants are requested to raise their hand so that I can allow them to unmute.
Yes, please. कोविड से हमें कौन सी चीज बचाएगी?
Please raise your hand so that this session can be more interactive and more lively.
Okay, maybe Nitin Kumar Wagmare, would you like to respond, please? What's going to save us from this pandemic? Nitin Kumar Wagmare.
Nitin, you may unmute yourself and may respond to sir.
Nitin? If not Nitin, then maybe anybody, please raise your hand. How about Kanchan Sharma? Miss Kanchan Sharma, are you there? Please unmute yourself, and I request an answer to this question, maybe a curious question which I have, that who is going to save us from pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic eventually?
Simranjit,
hello.
Yes, please. Yes, Simranjit, please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. I think, sir, myself or ourselves can contribute in protection from this COVID situation.
Sure. Very correct, Simranjit. One angle, when very important, means would be our own, exercising of social distancing, our own using of masks.
Yes, sir.
But
yes,
if,
sir.
What is the final solution? This is again, can we do this all our life? What is going to be, what is something which we are waiting for, looking for, and waiting for, that if this thing comes, this is going to be saving us from pandemic?
Basically, we are looking for a vaccine.
Yes, you're right.
You're right. Very, very correct. A vaccine, we're waiting for that. So vaccine is going to be our savior. Yes. So this is again the case I bring in front of you, and that's what my even though I work on something called as emerging contaminants, but I am, as a human being, I want to save myself, I want to save my loved ones, I want to ensure that the people around me, the society around me is saved. And even now my eyes are on that medicine or on that vaccine. Right. Thank you very much, Simranjeet. Thank you. So yes, social distancing is important. Using a mask is important. Sanitizing is important. But after all, at the very end, final hope, the light at the end of the tunnel is no matter how much social distancing we do, no matter how much mask and sanitization we do, at the end of the day, we want to be safe, like the way we are safe against, say, tuberculosis, like the way we are safe against, say, any other disease. Okay. Now, so with this context, yeah, India is very uniquely positioned. If you think about it, India is actually the pharmaceutical hub of the world. We produce, after China, we are the second country in the world which produces the medicine for the whole world. So I have a student who is based in Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo. His name is Akonkawa. After completing his master's, he went back to Congo and he did his project from there. I called Akonkawa and said, Akonkawa, how are things with respect to the COVID in Congo? He said, Akash sir, don't worry, we are getting medicines from India. So I told him, okay, which medicines do you get? And I asked him, do you get Zincovit? Zincovit is a vitamin with zinc. So he says, yes, sir, whatever you get in India, we get it here. It is by the good, because it is coming from India, it has the same name also. So I will go and get that medicine. So India is not only producing the medicine, but we are the medicine kind of hub of the world. We are supplying medicine to a large part of the world. Brazil, I think you knew when COVID started, America asked for hydroxychloroquine, the drug for malaria. Brazil asked for hydroxychloroquine. So because we have so much of capacity based out of Gujarat, based out of Pune, based out of Sikkim, and based out of Assam, all this medicine, and then there are many other medicine clusters in southern part of India. More are coming up. So India is actually very uniquely positioned, and we are producing a lot of medicines. Good, as well as, there is some issue with that. I'm going to share that perspective right away. So I say it is a silver lining. This medicine sector actually has grown very fast. Yeah. So in India's growth story, after IT, the next bigger industry is the pharmaceutical. Yeah. Okay. Now, when we think about the pharmaceutical industry produces 4,000 types of medicines and drugs, which acts as lifesaver for our billion of population. China dominates the world from the point of view that they produce active pharmaceutical ingredients, whereas India gets this active pharmaceutical ingredients and produces something called as bulk drugs. India produces bulk drugs. But we produce a large number of that. Even Russia recently asked for medicine. Okay. Now, why India is producing so much is because we are a low cost manufacturing hub. And also we have leveraged a lot on the generic medicines. So medicines whose patents are over, now we are producing them based on the patent clause that these drugs. So earlier, if any medicine used to cost 10 rupees, now it's only going to cost you, say, 50 paisa or 1 rupees because of the generic patent clause. The demand is also, now before even the COVID came, the demand of pharmaceutical products is increasing. Why? Because we are living in an urban lifestyle, sedentary lives, and also, we are sitting in offices, we are breathing air, which is we are breathing air which is often polluted because of the growth which we see. So the demand for pharmaceutical, and also we want to be safe. We want to be, say, we don't want to fall sick. We don't want our bodies to, we don't give our chance to our bodies to recover, because the easier way is available. The faster way is available. We have to report to office the next day. So as a result, there is now a changing trend. More and more pharmaceuticals are being used, demand is increasing. And if I ask you a question, what would COVID do to this demand? Your answer would be, it will further increase. The rising demand will further increase. Now, it is imperative. Now, pharmaceutical industries, as they are producing more and more medicines, they are also using more and more water. To produce medicines, we want to be very clean, pure. So the kind of water we use for those producing those medicines is also need to be very pure, RO type water, reverse osmosis, even further clear water, electrically deionized water. So there should be no ions in it. That's what the kind of water we use. As a result, the water usage by this industry is also increasing. See, that is one context. Now, once they use this kind of pharmaceutical industry, when they use this kind of water, they also discharge substantial amount of water. For every 100 liters of water a pharmaceutical industry uses, it also has to discharge another 100 liter because RO systems, reverse osmosis systems, produce water and also produce salty water. You know that if you might have RO systems in your homes, and you know that there is a reject line. Every time you produce 1 glass of clean water, you have to reject, or if you want really clean water, you have to reject at least half a glass of bad water. But in pharmaceutical, for every 1 unit of clean water, they have to reject 1 unit of water which is very, very salty, So that's the context. Now, okay, what do you see here in front of you? The case which I present in front of you is pharmaceuticals or medicines, the hidden risk. The hidden risk. Why it is a hidden risk? Because it is very much required for us to be our saviors, but at the same time, there is something which we know, but at the same time, as a trade-off, हम लोग अपनी जान बचाने के लिए, we are living with that trade-off. That trade-off is that when these pharmaceuticals go in the environment, something happens. And I will discuss in my further, as my discussion continues, I'm going to discuss about important pathways by which this pharmaceutical go into the environment, and what happens, what do they do when it goes into the environment. And I quote Albert Einstein that not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. So, like a glacier, like an iceberg, we only see a part of the things. We don't see what is hidden below. So that's why I call it the hidden risk. Although people are acting on it, but still, as a trade-off, we always have, we say, first let me be safe, then I think about the other thing. We talk in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are using sanitizers, cleaning products, and medicines. Do you agree with that? Yes or no? Any answer from, do you agree? Because of the pandemic, now earlier, if our house cleaning was done using just water and some normal detergent, but nowadays we want to ensure that my house is deep cleaned. And so I'm doing, our houses have become hospitals. We are doing sanitizer, cleaning products, and medicines. Do you agree with that? Anyone? Anybody quickly say yes, no?
Yes.
Do you agree?
Agreed.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I heard a yes. Thank you very much. I heard another yes. Okay. So yeah, as the COVID has come on front of us, come as part of us, we are now trying to be extra clean. No, nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing wrong. But we are using more sanitizers. We are using more cleaning products, and to keep ourselves safe, we are also using more medicines. Initially, of course, good thing is that in India, we use a lot of our natural medicines. So the kadhas we are using. But for someone like me who did not knew ahead of time that, or to do an immediate response, I started taking vitamin C, and I started taking zinc, because I know that zinc helps. So whatever the doctors were doing, we also started doing at our homes. Yeah, but we are trying to keep our houses clean. These sanitizers, these cleaning products, quick answer, what are they made of? what is inside these sanitizers and these cleaning products? Anyone? Yes, please.
You may unmute yourself and
Sir,
Yeah,
chemically
anybody.
it's alcohol.
Yeah, chemicals. Very correct, Dr. Gupta. They have chemicals in it. But if I take one more step forward, the kind of chemicals which are used in these
Alcohol.
sanitizers and cleaning products are organic chemicals. Many times organic chemicals. So chlorohexidine, the kind of mouthwash we use for our own cleaning, human hygiene, is chlorohexidine. You know that mouthwash ही बोलते हैं ना उसको. So chlorohexidine, and so the Dettol which we use and the Savlon which we use has chlorohexidine in it. Okay? So, and rightly said. And for the other cleaning products are including various type of organic chemicals, and also they also contain some metals, and they also contain compounds like EDTA, ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, because it scavenges the loose particles. Okay. My point is, these chemicals which are there in the cleaning products and these organic compounds which are there in the cleaning products, they have long-term implications. The medicines, drugs, antibiotics which we use to keep ourselves safe, when they go into the environment, they have detrimental impact. Detrimental means harmful impact on the environment. Studies, of course, parallelly, studies are showing now that because of COVID, the sales of medicine is increasing. Doctors are also trying to use their best. I mean, COVID-19 was a new type of virus. In fact, some people say that it is not a naturally evolved virus. So there is very difficult to find a medicine, but doctors, genuine doctors, sincere doctors were trying to save their patients, and they were trying to save their patients by medicines. When we say, but doctors usually exercise a judgment. A doctor will not give you unnecessary medicine. But because COVID came as a surprise and there was no, solution to COVID, how do we save somebody from COVID? The doctors were also experimenting with more number of medicines. Okay. Now, because this more number of medicines was administered to human beings depurate as we use bathrooms, as we use toilets. We depurate excess amount of medicines in wastewater. So that is the bathroom. Every time we flush our toilet, yes, we have flushed, but this flush is now going with more medicines, with more cleaning products. Correct? Eventually, after you mop the floor, where do you throw away the bucket which has the dirty water? You drain it, right? You put it down the toilet, or you put it down the drain. So eventually it goes into the system, sewage wastewater system. Another COVID-19 studies have shown that doctors used indiscriminate use of azithromycin. Doctors used more of azithromycin, more of an antibiotic use during the novel coronavirus. Have to be used with proper characterization of co-infection to avoid indiscriminate use. The very reason this statement comes is because the doctors were using antibiotics to save their patients, and they were using actually more than what is needed, because they felt, okay, let me also take care of that other infection which is there. So more drugs were used, and as a result, more drugs were going out into the environment. So in this larger discussion which I had with you, my objectives for this session is related to how emerging contaminants come in the environment, their occurrence, their sources, their pathways, and what are these emerging contaminants, with special reference to antibiotics and their metabolites, and something new, which is related to antibiotic resistance bacteria, which is as a result of these medicines going into the environment. And the third part of my talk relates to treatment strategies. How can we work around this new challenge which we have in front of us for more and more emerging contaminants, emerging pollutants going into the environment? So whether from the point of view of innovation, from the point of view of sustainability and scalability, and certain case studies which I present to you. So this is how my talk will go forward. So far, so okay. Is everybody with me? And are you finding it? I mean, are you able to follow the narrative? Are you able to follow the discussion? A quick yes from any of the participants will help me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I heard more than one. Thank you very much. So let's keep our focus. Yeah, let's keep our focus on this very important topic. है ना? Yeah. When we say the impact, environmental impact and risks of these emerging contaminants, the map which is there in the center shows the pharmaceutical clusters we have in India. So there are existing clusters, the small ones. No, sorry, there are existing clusters and there are new clusters which are proposed. Yeah. So the smaller ones are the existing pharmaceutical clusters, and the larger orange dots show that how new clusters are proposed. So no more new clusters. And the two photographs on the side is from another very important pharmaceutical cluster of India, which is in Telangana, Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, sorry. In Telangana, there is a very important pharmaceutical cluster. We produce different kind of medicines there. But there have been incidences, not only recently, but earlier also, that the river system, the water bodies which are surrounding those industries producing of the pharmaceutical cluster, there have been reports of fish being killed on very large amounts. And all of a sudden, it was not that every day there were fish dying, but then one fine day or one very unfine morning, one very sad morning, there was around 50 tons of fish, dead fish floated on the river banks. And when they tried to trace it, it was found that some of the chemicals which they were using in these pharmaceutical clusters was either intentionally or unintentionally discharged in these water bodies, these lakes. And as a result, these fishes died. So this is the obvious impact. This is something which we are able to see. It's very sad, but this is something which you can see. But there is more to that. What happens? These pharmaceuticals, of course, we call them as emerging pollutants because they are not regulated. As of now, there is no guideline for water treatment as well as for receiving waters. When we say receiving waters, it is our lakes, our rivers, and our water bodies, where after treatment, after wastewater treatment plant, they discharge, industries, they discharge, and also water naturally as after a rain event or after a storm water, after a rain event, water flows down from these urban areas, collecting all the dust from the roads and collecting all the pollutants from our own urban areas, and they take it down to the river, river or lake, wherever is the receiving water. Matlab final kahan par jayega, wherever is the natural water body, it will take it there. So pharmaceuticals are emerging pollutants. So far they were not regulated, but more and more are being used, and they are coming into the environment. They are also pseudo-persistent in nature. What is the meaning of the word pseudo-persistent? Persistent means which lasts for a very long time. Non-persistent means like something which is, so hamara jo kitchen waste hai, if you put out into the environment, it will decompose. It will degrade in a few days' time. Plastic, again, it's very persistent. It is not going to degrade. There is no bacteria which can eat on the plastic. Now, pharmaceutical are organic compounds. They are organic compound and they are pseudo-persistent in nature, meaning they do degrade, but they take a very long time to degrade. So many years. Okay. And the different kinds of pharmaceuticals are hormones, antibiotics, lipid regulators, non-steroidal, anti-inflammatory drugs, beta blockers, antidepressants, anticonvulsants, antinoplastics. Okay. And often diagnostic contrast media. Now, the crocins which you buy, the azithromycins which you buy, the diclofenac, आपने इसका नाम सुना है? डाइक्लोफिनैक, जो कभी कभी आपके किसी एल्डरली पेशेंट को तकलीफ होती होगी तो वो बोलता होगा मुझे थोड़ा मूव लगा दो बेटा, या फिर प्लीज गेट मी सम मूव और मूव आयोडेक्स तो नहीं, लेकिन मूव और मूव के जैसी और भी दवाइयां, देयर आर सिमिलर things which we apply on our joints, so which makes it easier for the person who is suffering and struggling from the joint pain. So move, I quickly remember move, and then relax. क्या बोलते थे उसको? There was another one, Relaxil, I guess, and then Thromboc, and many such medicines are available. Either some are taken internally and some are applied externally. Now, whether you take something externally or whether you apply externally, eventually when you take a bath, something which you apply on the surface again goes into the sewer system. Correct? Correct? So these pharmaceutical enter the natural environment through various pathways. These pathways are here as follows. Are you able to see the image? It's a little blurry because of, as I take it full screen, thoda iski sharpness kam ho rahi hai, but are you still able to see this? A quick response from anybody will help me.
No, sir.
Not visible?
Not visible.
Okay. Okay. Are you able to see a flowchart in front of you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So let me walk you through a flowchart. Let me simplify. And what I can do after this presentation, I can share this with you so that you can review it, in a more deeper way, in a more, personal manner, one by one. But for now, let me try to give a high level picture of this flowchart. This flowchart has two pathways. The very first pathway, it says sewage. Are you able to read that? The left hand side top, sewage. Yes,
no, sir.
Okay. ठीक है, तो आप sewage पढ़ पा रहे हैं. Now sewage comes from three pathways. One is households, our households. Also sewage comes from industries, and also sewage comes from hospitals. Now within households, these medicines, sometimes we throw away unused medicine. That is not of concern as of now. As of now, the bigger concern is the medicines we consume. The medicines we consume, and as we ingest those medicine, whatever is required, whatever our body can absorb, it absorbs. Whatever it cannot absorb, it rejects. And then these consumed medicines go through this pathway that it goes to the domestic sewage. From domestic sewage, it goes where? It says STP. What is STP? Anybody? STP?
Sewage treatment plant.
Thank you. Yeah, sewage treatment plant. So it goes to a STP, and from an STP, it again goes to, in STP, what do? We clean water, we clean wastewater. And in the process of cleaning, we produce sludge, right? We produce sludge, and this sludge is now again dried and applied in fields, applied in agriculture fields. Or it is incinerated, but finally it is put somewhere. It ends up going somewhere. But in Indian context and with domestic sewage wastewater treatment plant, a lot of sludge is used and applied in fields in agriculture. So this agriculture, it goes there. So that is one pathway by which it goes to the soil. So medicines which were not meant for the soil now has gone to the soil. The other pathway, which is related to industry and hospital, again by way of either a wastewater treatment plant or a hospital wastewater treatment plant, it goes to, after treatment, they do their best. They try to treat. Industrial wastewater treatment plant, to an extent, they try to treat the medicine, but because these medicines are not treatable by normal treatment methods, these organic compounds are not treated by normal treatment methods, they eventually go to, some part of it goes to the surface water or receiving water, and then as you can see, these pathways from wastewater treatment plant, from hospital wastewater treatment plant, or from domestic wastewater treatment plant, it also somehow finds a way to groundwater. Finally, it reaches to a place which is our source of water, meaning which is our source of drinking water. As a result, these medicines now, because they are following this complex pathway and ending up where we are taking our water, what is going to happen? We are now ingesting these medicines, although in very, very small quantities, but these organic compounds, because they are pseudo persistent, they don't decompose, they don't degrade, bacteria cannot break them down completely. Eventually we end up taking those medicines in our system as either as metabolites, meaning broken down medicines or medicines in simpler forms, or sometimes if some medicine is really, really resistant, then we ingest that also. So that is one pathway which you saw, which was the human pathway. correct? Which was the human pathway. There is another pathway which is related to veterinary drugs. You know, as we also in India, and also India is a large exporter of poultry. When we say poultry, that means India export eggs. India export eggs to Iran, to Saudi Arabia, to a lot of many countries in Middle East, and it also exports a lot of eggs to many other countries. So I will only stick to poultry. Now, when we keep these, when we have to produce so many number of eggs as like in an industrial setup, you know, there are hundreds of thousands of hens which are hatching, and then these eggs are now taken away, and then so it's like an industrial process. Now, these hens, if you keep so many number of hens in a closed compound, what happens? There is chance of infection. In fact, you know, bird flu. There is so much of chance of infection. But these companies would like that infection not to happen. So to keep these poultry or to keep these hens safe, they inject them. They give them antibiotics. They give them, you know, medicines, either in the food or by injection. Literally, they give them, or they sometimes they also spray the medicine around, so that the feathers of the hen, they are clean, you know, they don't let any bacteria grow. But what happens when these, and eventually after the hens have completed their cycle of giving the eggs, they again go back as chicken. They are being sold as chickens. But these hens and these chickens have been fed with antibiotics. So just think about it. Over the course of the lifetime, the hen was constantly getting these antibiotics. Of course, it was depurating a part of it. It was actually ingesting a part of it, but a part of it also goes out. But a part of it remains in that hen. So these veterinary drugs, when these animals, they die or they are eaten up, or they are used in same thing also happens with fishes. When we try to breed fish in captivity, we have to make sure that antibiotics and medicines are administered. As a result, these animals remain safe, and we get a very good, clean looking fish, but it has some medicines inside it, right? And they again go back into our system. Even we thought that's the only thing we are eating, but no, we are getting more than that. Okay, so is this clear? These are the various pathways by which these medicines, or which are emerging pollutants, emerging contaminants, they reach either our drinking water or they reach our receiving water. So this is something we can kind of factor. This is something which is visible and we are able to see. But something more is happening, and I'm going to share that story with you right away. Yeah, so these are the environmental risks. What we are seeing, that because of these pharmaceutical compounds going into the natural systems, we are seeing various things. You are familiar with the word bioaccumulation? Yes? What is bioaccumulation? Bioaccumulation? Anybody? Any student? Bioaccumulation? What is bioaccumulation?
You may unmute yourself and
Hello?
sir.
Yes, please.
So bioaccumulation is a storage of a particular chemical or compound in a particular body part.
Okay, in a tissue, in a tissue, or in the gill, right? Very correct, yes. Simranjit. But bioaccumulation, if you think about the term, it is actually the progressive accumulation of a compound within a particular level of trophic level, as it goes so the fish eats small algae. So if there is something in the algae, the fish keeps on eating that algae, and now that something which was small in algae now becomes larger in the fish. Now large fish eats that fish, and now over a period of time, the larger fish has accumulated more of that. Correct? So that's with each trophic level, the accumulation of any unwanted contaminant or pollutant, as it increases, that is bioaccumulation. Now, what has been seen with these?
Sorry sir.
Yes.
Sir, I think that is biomagnification. If its concentration increases, then it is biomagnification, and if it is accumulated or storage in a particular organism inotrophic chain or inotrophic level, then it is bioaccumulation, I think.
Sir, both the terms are used interchangeably.
It is, but I think, yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, and thank you very much, Simranjeet. I think you did bring out the finer differences between that, and you're very correct in saying that bioaccumulation and biomagnification. So what I explained was an extension of bioaccumulation, and that is biomagnification. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Dr. Gupta. Yes. Now, but we are seeing as these compounds, as these emerging contaminants, which are in the form of antibiotics, drugs, and hormones, as this is going out into the environment, we are seeing several things with the fishes. So enlargement of fish livers, negative reproduction impact, many histopathological changes, and also the food chain are getting impacted. So antibiotics such as, some antibiotic which may be good for me, but it's going to be really bad for the fish. So as these medicines which are coming from human beings going out into the natural environment, they are actually resulting into negative impact to the fishes, the algae, the frogs, and let me see, the crabs, the lobsters, various things. I'm a vegetarian, by the way, but still I can relate to. So there was a study in US when this emerging contaminants was being studied at a very, very focused manner. They found that the salmon fishes, which are now in the breeding season, they're finding a change in the sex of the salmon. So the female fishes were becoming male, and so all different kinds of phenomena was being observed as a result of these compounds going into the natural system. Yeah. But the other bigger thing which I want to share with you, the other bigger picture which I want to share with you, that as these antibiotics and as these medicines go into the environment, of course, this is a schematic, this is a graphic, which shows you how it goes and where it ends up. But the much subtle, or the thing which you don't see, the hidden of the iceberg, the hidden part of the iceberg, which we are not seeing. Okay, scientists are trying to flag it for some time now. Scientists are saying that this is an even very big risk. You please be careful. If you don't be careful, then we are going into a very, very downward spiral with respect to our health. And that is, they are trying to say that the very medicine which could have saved you earlier, now it cannot save you. Why they say so? That is the story which I am trying to share and present. And that story is the story of antibiotic microbial resistance. The story of antibiotic microbial resistance. And what is this antibiotic microbial resistance? Or you might have heard this word, another word for the same, called as antibiotic resistance bacteria. Antibiotic microbial resistance or antibiotic resistant bacteria. What they're saying, it's a very big threat because of the drugs and the antibiotics going out into the environment. And because what happens because the amount of drug is small, and the amount of water available in which this drugs goes is large. So eventually what happens to that drug? It becomes diluted. It becomes... Yes, Vandana? So because of these drugs going into the environment and the amount of water to assimilate is very, very large, this drug becomes very, very in smaller quantities. Now, earlier, that drug used to, that medicine or drug used to be able to kill the bacteria, or when the bacteria cannot bear it. But now, because the quantity is very, very less, and for a small quantity for a larger period of time, the bacteria becomes resistant to that. So the earlier, if a bacteria which was actually very weak against that drug, but now it cannot fight it out. Earlier it was very weak and used to get wiped off, but now because the drug is very slow quantity, the bacteria produces genes which are now resistant to that to the new kind of in low concentration. And the next generation is even resistant. The next generation of bacteria is even resistant, and the further as they reproduce generation by generation, they start becoming more and more resistant to the very medicine and the very drug which was there. All right. So this is a very big threat as of now, antibiotic microbial resistance. In India, before COVID came, we were already experiencing scenarios like extreme drug resistance due to tuberculosis. So the patients of tuberculosis have certain kind of genes in them, or the the old medicine, the tuberculosis medicine, is not able to, it was not successful on, because a special bacteria, kind of bacteria, has evolved called as extreme drug resistance bacteria. This was the case in Bombay, but also cases in AIIMS New Delhi. There is a very focused effort by which, how do we ensure that these medicines are used responsibly, in a responsible manner, so that we are able to handle this antibiotic microbial resistance, so that we don't want unnecessary medicines to go in the environment, and as a result, bacteria, or the ecology to be affected or impacted or changed because of these medicines and drugs and emerging contaminants. I know several people have lost their friends because of this, and so this is a very important thing. Now, I relate this to COVID-19. Because of COVID-19 being very, very new in the system, doctors were trying to save their patients, and they were trying to use medicines and drugs more and more. I don't blame the doctor, please. My statement comes with a very disclaimer, with a lot of respect to the authentic and the genuine doctors, that they were trying to save their patients. But there was an implication. There was an implication, and there still remains an implication, because, COVID is not gone. It is very much here. In fact, we have not even reached the peak. Please, again, don't get worried by that, because there is COVID and then there is fear of COVID. Both of things exist. So we have to be careful. But at the same time, the message which I want to share with you is that we have to be responsible with our using of drugs and medicines. Okay. Now, in that discussion, I brought in elements of what is the problem, what is the challenge, and how do we, now my next focus of my discussion relates to how do we really manage this situation so that we can reduce the amount of impact this kind of medicines have it, and reduce the amount of whether it is antibiotic microbial resistance, or whether it is the ecological impact. How do we minimize it, reduce it? So far so good. A quick response. Are we able to relate the threads? What are the pathways of this, and what is the impact of that? Emerging contaminants. Correct? Vandana or anybody from the participants?
Yes, sir.
आप समझ पा रहे? कोई मतलब इस पर्टिकुलर जो नैरेटिव मैं फॉलो कर रहा हूँ, आई एम द काइंड ऑफ डिस्कशन करने के लिए जो मैं एक धागे को फॉलो कर रहा हूँ कि क्या चीज है, क्या उसका इम्पैक्ट है. अब जो तीसरा एस्पेक्ट आई एम गोइंग टू ब्रिंग फॉरवर्ड इज हाउ डू वी मैनेज दिस सिचुएशन. Is it okay? Are you able to follow this thread?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Now, as we started living in urban centers, what we did was we secured water supply for us. We ensured that we are getting clean water to drink. And we also, to an extent, we are not there yet, but to an extent, we tried to create water treatment plants. Our idea was that whatever waste, now water was used as a vehicle or a carrier. If you think about it at a fundamental level, what are we doing? We are bringing in clean water. We are using it for our kitchen. We are using it to drinking. We are also using it for our bathing. But beyond that, we are also using the water for flushing. We're trying to use that to be able to live in a clean and hygienic manner, and to be able to live, have our bathroom next to our bedrooms. We want to ensure that whatever waste we produce gets carried away from the bathroom to a far off distance. And to be able to do that, we use water as a carrier. That was a conscious decision. And we started using water as a carrier. And so we are using water to flush away. So as I said, as we started living in urban centers, we started producing a lot of wastewater. And this wastewater, it was definitely, you cannot just put this wastewater out, because we live in a large number of people. So large amount of wastewater is generated, and large amount of wastewater, if it is going to the river system, it pollutes the river. You are familiar with that. You know what happens to when wastewater, untreated wastewater goes into the river system. But now here, something more is happening, as you see. Earlier, it was only waste, human waste, but now this human waste is also including drugs, medicines, and Also cleaning products, right? I also said that we're keeping our houses clean. So new kinds of compounds and new kinds of new kinds of contaminants and pollutants are going into the waste stream. It is now beyond the soaps, the shampoos. Even in fact, shampoo also is a very, very complex, organic chemical, which makes your hairs feel lighter. But why do your hairs feel lighter after you use a shampoo? Is because a shampoo has EDTA, ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid. And what does EDTA does? EDTA takes, it actually sequesters. वो क्या करता है कि अगर आपके बालों में धूल जम गई है, और धूल में क्या होता है, मेटल्स होते हैं, है ना, सिलिका होता है, तो EDTA उसको कॉम्प्लेक्स बना के वॉश आउट कर लेता है. इसीलिए आपके बाल आफ्टर यू डू अ शैम्पू दे फील लाइटर, बिकॉज EDTA has taken away all the different kinds of dust and the particulate matter which is stucking into your hair. All right. So, but eventually my point is all these compounds are now going into the wastewater, and it has been found that the existing wastewater treatment systems are not sufficient, because existing wastewater treatment systems were designed to treat human waste. They were designed to treat, biodegradable compounds, but not all the emerging contaminants are biodegradable because they are semi-persistent, right? They are complex, they are heavy molecules. Our normal bacteria cannot treat them, they cannot break them down. The very principle which was used for activated sludge plant, or even sequencing bioreactors, or membrane moving media bioreactors are not sufficient. The bacteria or trickling filter is not sufficient. We are not able to treat them. So now, in this context, bioreactors are not sufficient. The very bacteria, and also there is another problem if you look deeply in it. मैंने आपको बताया ना कि wastewater treatment bacteria, the bioreactors which we were using to treat the wastewater treatment, how were we treating the wastewater? We were treating the wastewater using the bacteria. But now, because bacteria, now in a wastewater treatment plant, what happens? There is a large amount of bacteria, and we try to culture a large amount of bacteria. Now, when these large amount of bacteria, they continuously get exposed to emerging contaminants, which are antibiotics, which are drugs, which are hormones. These bacteria, over a period of time, they get killed. मतलब जो भी antibiotic जो bacteria को मार सकता है वो मार देगा. But as we have learned that with generation, as the bacteria they multiply, they grow, and they new bacteria keeps on generating. So these bacteria, the next generation of bacteria slowly start becoming resistant to these emerging contaminants, and as a result, this antibiotic drug resistance, which it becomes, this becomes resistant to antibiotic drugs and hormones, and as a result, two things happen. One is the bacteria, the very bacteria which was there in the wastewater treatment plant, as it goes to the natural water bodies, lakes, rivers, and soil, what happens? We have created AMR, antibiotic microbial resistance. Correct? So that's the kind of scenario we are working with. So, and the argument which I am making, or the point which I am making, is that our existing wastewater treatment plants are not sufficient. So then how do we go about it? What do we do about it? Dr. Somveer, time wise, may I request another 15 minutes to complete my presentation? Is that okay?
Sure, sir. Our next
Thank
speaker is about to join, so you may take.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
15 minutes. Otherwise, it will affect other sessions also.
Yes, sir. No, I will ensure that I will complete by next session is at 12:30, na?
12 o'clock only.
Oh, 12. I'm sorry, sir. Actually, there was some confusion because of the meeting invite. I thought it is up to 12:30, but I'm going to take another 15 minutes maximum or less and complete this. Kindly bear with me. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So, so what is the way forward? And after a lot of experiments and studies being done, we are at a point where we can say that the new kind of wastewater treatment technology which is required and which can be used on a large scale basis, on a scalable and a sustainable basis, is photocatalytic degradation. I will quickly introduce you what is the technology and why do I call it sustainable, right? both of these arguments I'm going to defend. So what is sustainable technologies? Sustainable technologies are the ones which are scalable, which are robust. Robust mean they work for the wide variety of waste. They are resilient, and they have low energy footprint, they have low carbon footprint, and are easy to maintain. Also, in addition to that, they are in line with the principles of nature. They are closed loop system, and we learn from nature. Basically, I think we learn how the nature does it, and we try to apply the same principles in an engineered system. So the technology photocatalytic degradation is very, actually, it's a very smart technology. It's a very innovative technology. We are using the principles of photocatalysis. That is, there are, what is catalyst? You know what is catalyst? Catalyst is something which enables a reaction, which creates a reaction, and in that process it itself remain unchanged. Catalyst is a very unique element which enables a reaction, which brings down the threshold, which brings down the energy barrier, but itself it remains unchanged. So titanium dioxide is one very unique element. Titanium dioxide, and also especially nanoscale, as the size of the particle reduces, as the size of the element reduces, it provides a very unique advantage. Surface area increases, but titanium dioxide results into, as a catalyst, it is very interesting. The titanium dioxide is active, or is active in the presence of sunlight. So to be able to treat something, so it does not require heat, it does not require extra energy. It works based on sunlight. Now, so titanium dioxide is as a catalyst, is a photocatalyst, and how it works is that it forms hydroxyl radical. It takes water from the air, it takes oxygen from the air, and it takes it breaks down water. It breaks down the water and produces a very active radical called as the hydroxyl radical, OH plus. This hydroxyl radical is very reactive, and this is so reactive that it breaks down the antibiotics, it breaks down the emerging contaminants, it breaks down the organic compound. So this paper is by a very, very famous professor who is working out of Delhi Technical University, and his PhD student. So they tried to do what? They have run an experiment to photodegrade amoxicillin, which is an antibiotic, in pharmaceutical wastewater, and it is as a tool to reduce the amount of antibiotics going in the environment. Another paper by, there is a minor issue. The previous one was Dr. Manisha Verma's and Harita's paper. This paper there is a slight issue. There was another study which was done for ciprofloxacin. Ciprofloxacin is also another form of antibiotic, and another compound which is called as bisphenol, organic compound. So here also, instead of titanium dioxide, a new photocatalyst, zinc oxide, was used. Zinc is safer, cheaper, and it can be created more easily. So zinc oxide nanoparticles was used for, again, photocatalytic degradation. So, and I want to show a quick video to all of you. Hope you will be able to hear the sound. It's only a 1-minute video, but I think I will be able to convey my message better. So please confirm that you are able to see the video once it starts. Just one confirmation from anybody would help me, that you are able to see the video as well as you are able to hear the sound. One second. Professor Somveer, Dr. Somveer, are you able to see the video?
No, sir, it is not.
No, not visible. Okay. So 1 second. No.
Sir, you may share the link in chat box also.
Okay.
After this session means all these participants may go through this video.
Okay, sir. I will certainly share the link, but in the is it, can you just confirm if this is visible now?
In photocatalysis,
Yes,
when
sir.
light energy from sun sample is
Great.
irradiated on titanium dioxide, a strong power of decomposition is generated on the surface of the titanium dioxide by its properties. By this reaction, various organic matters that come near the titanium dioxide are continuously decomposed until they become harmless. Photocatalysis' effect is almost permanent. Let us examine the principle. When light energy is irradiated on the surface of titanium dioxide, electrons are released. The released electrons bind with oxygen to become superoxide anion. Moreover, the surface of the titanium dioxide becomes positively charged and takes electrons from moisture in the air. The moisture that has lost electrons becomes hydroxyl radical. The superoxide anion and hydroxyl radicals, by their power of oxidation destruction, decompose organic compounds such as oils, unwanted bacteria, hazardous scientific gases, fungus, and offensive odors that cause staining, turn them into water or other harmless substances, and disperse them into the atmosphere.
Okay, so thank you very much. I hope you were able to see that presentation, see that video. Was it clear in terms of, like, you know, I'm going to share the link with you, so I would encourage you to watch it once more. Oops.
EcoClean Architectural Products is a new titanium dioxide coating applied to the pre-painted aluminum surface of Renobond. The
All right. So, okay. So, were you able to see the video?
Yes, sir. It was visible.
Okay, thank you. Now, is the screen visible back in terms of, you know, the PDF screen?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just very close to complete this discussion and convey the message in the final conclusion. So so students, I mean, I'm not going to ask you questions back, but reflect on the video. Although it presented the case in a very simplified manner, this is a very complex reaction to. So I think I duly acknowledge several scientists who have given their life to come up with these models of photocatalyst systems, and they are very convinced, strongly convinced, that this is going to be the sustainable and the scalable way if we are to treat wastewater, the kind of complex wastewater we are generating, which has a lot of emerging contaminants in it. Okay, and why scalable? Because, you know, the amount of energy required, we are using a lot of, like the sun produces so much of photosynthesis and produces so many trees. Similarly, the very energy of sun we are going to use here. So energy wise, it is a very good proposition. There are various other treatment technologies which are under development right now. And so Dr. Haritash's group works with hybrid oxidation, a Fenton based process. Also in Yale University, Dr. he was commonly known as Manny. So Dr. Manny's group is working with titanium dioxide coated membrane processes. Also, there is a King Abdullah University of Science and Technology working on sunlight, degradation by membrane, silver coated membranes. Also, Dr. Malini Balakrishnan at TERI, New Delhi, is working on biological treatment and assimilation. So they are using the same systems, the earlier systems which we have, and trying to see how much emerging contaminants can be bio-assimilated, bio-treated. I and my research group at TERI School of Advanced Studies, we are also working with low-cost nanocatalysts for photodegradation. We are also trying to work trying to understand how do we better manage these emerging contaminants in the form of pharmaceutical drugs and compounds. New research findings at so, you know, Manny's group in Yale have some encouraging results. Also, Pei's group, they use sunlight with bacteriophages. So bacteriophages are compounds which eat on. Bacteriophages are compounds which are bacteria or are protozoas which eat on bacteria. So they are also using that to remove not compounds, but antibiotic resistant bacteria. So they are trying to create, bigger things which can kill the bacteria, which is antibiotic resistance. And also in China, there is some compilation of work being done with pharmaceutical and these emerging contaminants. Again, as I said, I want to acknowledge one person which I had worked. He was a professor at University of Delaware. He spent almost 15 years towards development of this technology and making it more, getting the scientific understanding. Dr. C.P. Huang, I think I remember him fondly, and he's still around, working committedly towards new technologies. There are other efforts going on with respect to these antibiotic or managing these emerging contaminants. One is by the CII expert group, Confederation of Indian Industries. Also, there is a Center for Science and Environment, the magazine Down to Earth. So they also conducted a very large study, or tried to bring all the doctors together, as well as the various stakeholders together to make the issue more aware, to create more awareness about this issue. And they had successfully completed some studies. Also, pharma companies. So the pharmaceutical companies knew that if they are not going to solve this problem of antibiotic resistant bacteria, and if these compounds, if these emerging contaminants keep going in the environment, what will happen after a while? Their drugs are not going to be successful. Their drugs are not going to be able to treat if somebody is infected by an antibiotic resistant bacteria. The very medicine which was earlier able to kill bacteria from your system is not, because the new bacteria is now drug resistant. So as a result, the pharmaceutical company very, very proactively took it, and they ran a program called as Antibiotic Stewardship Program. So all the doctors of India were reached out. In fact, not only India, but globally, there was an antibiotic stewardship program going on, where doctors are being asked to not unnecessarily prescribe a medicine. If somebody falls sick, you basically monitor him and only exercise very good judgment in prescribing in prescribing medicines and drugs. We are doing a very quick study in the context of emerging contaminants and AR, antibiotic resistant bacteria perception. This study becomes even more important in the context of COVID. In conclusion, I will say what I just said, so that it is very important even now to you as an audience, and to me as a researcher, and to everybody who is around us, that we are more aware of these emerging contaminants which come out in the form of antibiotic resistance, which come out in the form of antibiotics, drugs, and hormones. Pharmaceutical industry, yeah, from a water point of view, they should use water more effectively and more judiciously, apply water efficient technologies, use principles of green chemistry to create their medicines. Also, water usage can be brought in by how much water you're using and how can you use less. Principles like zero liquid discharge. Also, these drugs, as they go in the environment, is bound to have impact. So we study those impacts in a more careful way. We also, both surface and groundwater are at risk to human health. So we should be cognizant about that. We should be, aware about this and try to be very responsible about this issue. And last but not the least, that we have to keep innovating and keep using technologies and innovative technologies which are promising, like what Dr. C.P. Huang did. Now it is our responsibility to take this understanding forward. So inspired by nature, closing the loop, using less water, and also do the socio-economic and socio-techno-economic feasibility. But we have to move fast, because COVID actually made it, again, everything COVID changed. COVID changed everything. And I think, so in this context, even the very narrative which I used, earlier I used to say, yes, we are going to get there in 5 years, but now I think we have to get it now. And last but not the least, I want to kind of say that sustainability and scalability of the treatment will be a key. So we have to work towards that. And okay, when COVID started, like you are worried, I also got worried. I was very anxious. And to an extent that sometimes nervous. But then, as in between this nervousness, I came across something by a lady who is a Polish lady by the name Marie Curie. She is the only woman to have been awarded Nobel Prize twice, once for chemistry and once for physics. She was a professor and also a very kind and loving mother. So at COVID, Marie Curie has said this in context of what he was doing at her time, that nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. So in the very context of COVID, I think, yes, there is COVID, but there is also fear of COVID. So we have to fight COVID, not the fear of COVID. So I think with that, this statement gives me a lot of confidence, and at the same time gives me some vision, some direction, that we have to understand more about it so that we fear less. And I'm sure we will overcome. I'm keeping the faith. I also want you to keep the faith that we'll be getting better and maybe a more responsible human race in times to come. With that, I want to say thank you to JC Bose University of Science and Technology, YMCA Faridabad, to my own institute, Terry School of Advanced Studies, Dr. Renuka Gupta and Somveer Singh, and all the panel who have made this seminar series possible. I want to say thanks to 2 students who worked on COVID-related issues recently. At any other opportunity, we will share their studies. One was related to solid waste, masks, and the other one was related to water quality in Madhya Pradesh, Ujjain. So with that, I want to say thank you, and thank you very much. Pardon me, Dr. Somveer and Dr. Gupta, for going over time. I just, maybe there was a confusion, but please bear with me this time. Thank you. With that, thank you. And if there are any questions, you may please, I know in the interest of time, you may please pass those questions as emails to me. I will be happy to address and we can interact further. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for this enlightening and stimulating talk on COVID situation and their impact on various fields, including social, economical, as well as environmental. And you rightly defined the insights of environmental impact even during this COVID-19 with the various emerging contaminants which are coming to the environment and their transfer of these contaminants, their microbial resistance, and various sustainable practices that we can go for to remove these contaminants and can reduce this risk associated with this. So if any student or any participant has any of the query, then you may drop your query in the this chat box so that we can entertain them. If it is not there, then is it there, or somebody want to discuss any of the component here? If there is no question, then I would like to invite Anita Girdhar ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Monica Mago. On the behalf of Department of Environmental Sciences, with kind consent from Dr. Renuka Gupta, Chairperson of the Department of Environmental Sciences and Department of Civil Engineering, would like to express gratitude to Dr. Akash Sondhi for a very wonderful and interesting session. I must appreciate the way you initiated the session, sir, with a poll to interact with the participants. You have clearly explained the social, economic, and environmental impacts of COVID-19 pandemic, and also nicely covered the aspects of how emerging contaminants, especially pharmaceuticals, antibiotics, have affected the environment in pandemic scenario, their pathways and challenges ahead. Sir, you have put all the efforts to provide a quality insight into innovative treatment technologies that would help in providing sustainable solutions in current situation. Once again, a very hearty thanks to you, sir, for a very interactive and truly a worth listening session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Monica. And again, once again, I thank Dr. Renuka Gupta and Dr. Somveer and the whole panel at YMCA Faridabad to kind of make this happen. And I think keeping in touch, I think we keep sharing. Maybe at a next opportunity, we would look forward to meet in person. But until then, we will keep connected. We'll be connected.
Sir, it was truly a very informative, interacting, and interesting session, sir. Really, we enjoyed the session. It was worth listening, sir. Thank you so much.